Morning, boys. We're here. We've arrived.
You're looking at a Jordan flu game from me, Jeff Murphy. I got no voice. Been getting after it at the beach all week long. But you know what? I'm not Lee Corso. You know what I mean? You guys don't drag me in and out of certain segments. I'm here for the whole thing. This place is pretty cool, man.
No, this place is awesome.
If it wasn't pouring rain all morning, I mean, I'm soaking wet. I don't know if anybody, hopefully that's not visible on the camera, but.
Man, we've had beautiful weather all week.
All week, dude.
And then we get nice morning shower on Saturday. But that's okay.
That's all right. Should clear up for the game tonight. I mean, it actually looks like it's slowing down or stopped already. But this place, man, I mean, we'll talk about it when we get going. Like, you got all kinds of attractions over here at this boardwalk.
Great setup.
An aquarium right here.
Yeah. I'm telling you, we should have brought the kids over here earlier in the week.
Little dinosaur
attraction. Paula Dean's restaurant. I thought she got canceled.
I thought she did too.
Margaritaville over there, too. Jimmy Buffett.
R.I.P.
R.I.P.
Wow.
Big time shout out. Just waiting for our boy Steeple_PC_51 to walk in the door.
I am, too. I do see some people standing out there. Place isn't open just yet. I don't think so. They probably open at 11 o'clock. This rain didn't help anybody, but I'm fired up, Jeff.
Can't wait. Full slate of games, week 2. So, ready to kick this thing off, boys?
Let's kick it off, Jeff. Live from the Hangout, boardwalk at the beach, Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. Just a quick, about 10 miles as the Chanticleer flies from Conway, South Carolina, boys. We are here. I mean, let's just start out and address the elephant in the room. We time-lapsed it last night.
We did.
Last night, we took a facilities tour over there at Coastal Carolina University. Great facilities. A lot of upgrades coming. 26 and a half minutes.
We did hit a little bit of Friday afternoon traffic, so I think had a little bit to do with it, but, I mean.
Hit a lot of red lights.
A lot of red lights.
Yeah. Well, let me say this about.
It's not too far from the beach.
No, it's not. And I think if you hit it during the week or earlier in the day, you probably could make it. I'd say anywhere from 12 to 15 minutes.
Yeah.
But it took 26, just under 27 from Brooks Stadium to the Ferris wheel or whatever it's called.
Right
out
there
here.
on the main strip. But I think,
Yeah.
I think we've solved the mystery.
Yeah.
Of the Stu's Wrights of the world, Terry Johnsons of the world. I mean, I'd call it a beach university.
I would. I mean, they got palm trees on campus. I mean, there's a lot of things we solved for the Sun Belt fans that are non-coastal fans. I mean, we looked at the Sun Belt Championship Trophy from 2020. No asterisks.
Nope.
Located anywhere on that trophy. No asterisks on the championship rings. I mean, I think Conway, I would call it, as they say, ball at the beach. And I would say they're a 2020 Sun Belt Championship team. I mean, there's no denying it at this point. But first of all, man, thank you to the Hangout.
Yeah.
This place, man, what a place to watch college football or to watch any game. I mean, they got TVs all over the place. You see them behind us, projection screens. I mean, outside, like I said, if it wasn't raining, you got stages. They do live music. I think they had a car show here last night.
Yeah.
But the whole place, just attractions everywhere. But can't thank the Hangout enough. Can't thank Coastal Carolina enough. Can't thank Matt Pierce enough for showing us around last night. So we got to do that. If you don't know who we are, We're the Group of Five guys. This is the second week in a row, second time in history of college football, a live Saturday morning pregame show dedicated specifically to the Group of Five. Brought to you by us. You can catch our Tuesday night live podcast every single Tuesday night where we recap the games from the weekend and we talk some gambling, talk some betting. We've got interviews with the coaches, players, fans, all the above. We need you to help us out. We need you to follow us on all the social media platforms at Group of Five Guys. Go to groupof5guys.com. We got swag. We got hats like the ones we all got on. We got polos like the ones we all got on. And then best thing you could do, go to YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your best podcasts. Subscribe to the channel. Give us a 5-star rating and review. And most importantly, tell your family and friends all about us. Guys, Conway, Coastal Carolina. Did y'all know we are 12 years to the week to arguably the greatest moment in Coastal Carolina football history? Can't tell you how excited I am to be here, Jeff, but let's let the people take a look and see what, in my opinion, boosted Coastal to what it is now.
So I told our players, I tried to let it out the front door. Meow, meow, the cat's still going crazy in there. And I told our players, you need to be more like a dog. We don't need a bunch of cats in here looking in the mirror. Do I look good? I got my extra bands on. I got my other shoes on. Be a dog. We don't need no meows. We don't need no cats. We need more dogs.
I love that video.
Elite. I think that press conference is up there with the Mike Gundy, I'm a man, I'm 40 press conference. It's up there with the Denny Green, we let him off the hook. I mean, that's our
playoffs. That one too.
Playoffs, yeah, that's got to be a top 5, I think, of all time press conference. Coach Bennett.
Playoffs.
There you
Got
go.
that one queued up.
You got him queued up, ready to go. Well, let's talk. So we fortunately got to be here pretty much all week. Tip and I got here on Tuesday afternoon. Murphy got here on Thursday morning. North Myrtle Beach, awesome beach. If you're a Jacksonville State fan or if you're another Sunbelt program and you guys are coming to play Coastal, highly recommend, man. Come for a few days, get you a house, get you a condo. I mean, where we're at, North Myrtle Beach, got a house. We're directly across the street from the beach. Great beach, great family-friendly beach. A lot of room to run for the kids, not super crowded. And then you've got all your necessities, within a mile or two of where we were staying, North Myrtle Beach. Now, or if you're looking to do the tourist thing, you go down there to that Ferris wheel. I can't remember the name of the street we were on, but it looked like a carnival down there. But that's up to you. That's up to your preference on what you like to do if you come down to the beach. But yeah, definitely have had a great time. We got a tour. We mentioned we got to tour the facilities last night. Jeff, tell me what you think. I mean, you got palm trees on campus. You got the brick structures everywhere. Overall, give me your opinion on the facilities on the campus.
No, I think the facilities are one of the top, in the conference for sure that we've seen. I just kind of really love the layout and the vibe that the university has as a whole. And then when you walk in, you walk into the football facilities, you got the nice big open weight room. They got plenty of space, whereas last week being at Tulane, they're kind of sandwiched in tight in that neighborhood. So it was cool to see, a contrast of just having space and having open land. You walk, nice short walk through, the trees. They got a little creek running down there to the practice fields, opens up. They got the 3 practice fields out there, 2 grass, 1 turf. And like you said, they're doing some upgrades. They're building a brand new indoor practice facility that's going to have all their meeting rooms, all their weight room, everything that they're going to need kind of on the other side of the stadium. But as far as first, opinion of the facilities, they're top of the conference that I have seen.
Yeah, and like you said, it's great to see them have room.
Yeah,
as they're building stuff and they got space for it. And this is a true indoor, 100 yards, fully closed off. It's not one of the pavilions like you see at Georgia Southern or UAB. So really, really excited for Coastal. This is not a lightning in a bottle one-hit wonder, Tip. I mean, I know everybody thinks Chadwell's gone and McCall's going to be gone after this year, but first of all, they've been good for a long time. And that's something that people, including myself, sort of forget about. Everybody knows what App State and Georgia Southern and Troy have done in the past, but everybody sort of, for whatever reason, they just look down on Coastal in their history. But I mean, you got guys like Josh Norman and his brother, who the facility is named after. I mean, these are all-time great NFL players. But But Tip, talk about that. I mean, talk about just having the space as opposed to like New Orleans, where they're wanting to do upgrades and they
literally have to go
they
up.
got
You have
no
to go
room.
up. Yeah, exactly.
They got no room, and they got a bunch of millionaires that they've got to appease when they build something. But Coastal, it's just like, yeah, I mean, we got 3 empty fields over here. We'll just pop something up.
Right, exactly. They have much, compared to Tulane, they have just much bigger, greater opportunity to have these facility upgrades because of that extra space. And you mentioned just about the success, and this isn't like a one-hit wonder team. I mean, the last 3 head coaches, each of them have a conference championship. So it's, it just shows you that they've built this program, and they're continuing to build onto that past success, and it's showing with not only the facility upgrades but the support that they get from everyone around here as well.
Well, and here's the other thing too. I think all their sports are pretty good, and that's something we talked about yesterday. I mean, baseball here is
Big time.
a national powerhouse. Year in and year out, they're really good, and I liked how you pretty much have all the athletics just
I like
right
how
in
it's
the,
right next to the football stadium.
Yep.
Yeah.
Everything's right there. Really excited to see the tailgate scene today. It does. I'm looking outside right now. It's still cloudy, but it does look like the rain has gone away. So really fired up to see the tailgate scene. Jeff, just initial thoughts on the game in general. What are you most excited to see about Jacksonville State coming in here to Conway?
Well, I'm excited to see this rushing attack, in person. They have been one of the top rushing teams in all of college football over the past couple of years, and then making the jump up today. They're averaging 50 rushes a game. So, this is going to be a big test for this new Coastal Carolina defense that I thought looked much improved last week. Although they got the loss, I thought the defense looked better than it did a year ago. But they're going to have their hands full up front, and those linebackers are going to get tested early. The passing game, we haven't seen, quite as much from Jacksonville State, but you can't sleep on it. So just that matchup between the Coastal defense and the Jacksonville State offense.
Yeah, and I'm going to go the other way because I thought Coastal's offense, especially the offensive line, struggled a little bit last week against UCLA. Now, granted, it's UCLA, and they have, probably a first-day draft pick in the interior defensive line. But, hey, man, Jacksonville State, I know it's UTEP and East Tennessee, but, 14 points and then 3 points? So Jacksonville State has shown that they belong, at the FBS level. And I'm looking forward to see, can Coastal's offensive line, can they protect Grayson McCall? Can they get the ball downfield? Can they establish some sort of a run game? Because, I got news for you. This ain't a walk in the park for Coastal. So you're really looking forward to seeing that. And I'm excited to see Grayson McCall up close and personal, live at home. I'm excited to see this environment. We talked yesterday about the stadium. It looks bigger than it is. We not to compare everything to Tulane, but that's just where we were last week. Tulane is a 30,000-seat stadium. Looks like a 30,000-seat stadium. Brooks Stadium, what 21,000? It looks 34, 35, just from being on the field.
I think it's that depth perception, because at the Coastal Carolina Stadium, the seats kind of look like they're further, like the press box looks like it's further apart. Where we talked about with Tulane, it's more up. It's more like tight squeezed together.
Yeah, and we got to talk about the surf turf. You like it? Do you hate it? What do you think, Jeff?
I like it. I like anytime you get a little bit different of a vibe. Put your own spin on obviously your stadium, but that's their color. And we talked with Matt yesterday, who's showing us around. They're one of the only teams, really in college football or the NFL that really pushes that teal color.
Yep.
So to put it on their field, I think that's just a smart move branding wise. And it just, when you see that field, you know exactly where they're at, who's playing. It's Coastal Carolina.
That is something we learned, that teal's not one of their primary colors. What was it? It was the
bronze.
The bronze and the
black.
And the black. So yeah, it's unique, it's different, it fits, it's personalized to them. So I love the way that they're branding that teal color.
Yeah, and we always talk about it on our regular podcast. At the Group of 5 level, you've got to do something different. And they, Coastal came in. It started with the guys like Teddy Gallagher being the villain of the Sun Belt. Every fan base, for whatever reason, hates Coastal, but then they got a unique color. They got a unique turf. They're an Under Armour school, which is not the standard Nike and Adidas, but and they play up to it, and they do a heck of a job, and they're pretty darn good on the field too. So it's one of those things where it's not just some gimmick. A lot of people I was seeing on social media, a lot of people were talking bad about Boise State's blue turf, and it's like, it obviously works because every time you see blue turf, you immediately think about Boise State. Now, that being said, it would be pretty stupid if you weren't a really good football program.
Yeah.
So that's where that's the catch-22, I guess.
Yeah, you have to be able to back it up, and so far they have, even with a couple head coaching changes in their short tenure at this level. But I don't see them slowing down anytime soon.
No. Well, boys, you ready to talk some football or what?
Let's do it.
Let's get started with the American Conference. You got a few decent games here. I'm going to read them off. We'll talk about a few of the, in our opinion, big games. You got Wagner and FCS school going to Navy. Navy had the loss at Notre Dame, so we really don't know what Navy's going to be like yet. Marshall going to East Carolina. Now, East Carolina got beat pretty good by Michigan, which I think was pretty expected. Now, Marshall, they're going to need to show something today, because if they want to win the Sun Belt East, or let alone the Sun Belt, they did not look very good against Albany last week. Now, again, a lot of people don't look very good in week one, and they always say the biggest jump is week 1 to week 2, but ECU is always a good team, a tough team. It's a bit of a rivalry game. East Carolina is a brutal place for a road team to go. But just looking to see Marshall just get something going offensively, something going with the run game. And then their defense, they were fine against Albany, but we'll see how they do against ECU. We really don't know yet about either one of these teams, but I'm excited to see Marshall. I had them winning the Sun Belt, so I'm going to need something to keep my confidence up in that regard. But you got Tulsa's going to Washington. You guys think Tulsa's got any shot at all?
No, you saw what Washington did to Boise State last week, who I still think is one of the top, group of 5 programs, but I think that's a tough game.
Yeah, Washington just have an elite offense. It is what it is.
Well, Tip, you do think in another opportunity, I think we've got 19 group of 5 versus power 5 opportunities this week. You do like a little bit SMU. Matter of fact, you liked this preseason, did you not?
I did, yeah. I was just because I like teams like this where you have a group of 5 team versus a Power 5 team, where the group of 5 team has that elite good offense, and SMU has that offense. And new starting quarterback Preston Stone. You just talked about it, Sprouse. The week 1 you can have some hiccups, you can have some turnovers, some issues or whatever, but they actually looked pretty good. They beat Louisiana Tech 38-14 last week. Preston Stone, their running back LJ Johnson Jr., both looked very good. So they have the offense that could potentially go into Norman, Oklahoma, and upset Oklahoma, but they have got to stop former UCF quarterback Dylan Gabriel. Now, granted, we know that Arkansas State has been down the last few years, but Oklahoma beat them pretty bad last week, 73-0. So I think the biggest key is slowing down Oklahoma's offense and basically just keeping up with them, because I think this is going to be an extremely high-scoring game.
Well, and SMU is one of the other teams that did a great job in the transfer portal this year. So everybody's talking about Colorado and Texas State from last week, rightfully so. But SMU did about the same thing, and Rhett Lashley brought a bunch of guys from Miami. He brought a bunch of guys with him. He was at SMU before, so he was able to bring some guys back. But, yeah, I like SMU, and they're, whatever, they're going to the ACC next year or the year after. They're going to be looking to prove something going against Oklahoma as a future SEC school. So really excited to see that game. Jeff, North Texas, another Texas school, going to Miami to play FIU. Did y'all see FIU's powder blue uniforms they're wearing this week? And they got powder blue in the end zone on the field, kind of a Miami Vice feel. I'm all about that.
I like it.
But what do you think? FIU, we keep hoping they take the jump, but they just haven't been able to do it.
Yeah, we're rooting for them. And their biggest issue is, Grayson James has got to figure out a way to pass the ball, efficiently and effectively. He was basically non-existent in their last game. Shamari Lawrence, their starting running back, had a massive game. They're going to need him to continue to be that catalyst in the backfield, run the ball, control the clock. That gives them a chance. Now, if you can get Grayson James to put up really any numbers, then they have a shot to win. But I just think that North Texas is a lot better than what they played last week against Cal. That was a tough Cal team that I personally didn't see coming with the unknown at quarterback. But Jamori Macklin had a massive game in that loss. 122 yards receiving, 2 touchdowns, it's a different style change. They've normally have it, and they still have a great stable of running backs, but they've changed it up to the air raid. So that was my question last week is how is, you have the personnel from a previous regime, previous style of offense, and now you're kind of switching to something that is a little bit against what your strengths are. So interested to see if they can get it done against FIU this week. But I think this is going to be a good game. I think it's going to be closer. The line's at 12 right now, and I think that's right about right.
I think we got to give FIU some credit this year so far. They played Louisiana Tech tough in week 0, and they found a way to beat Maine last week. I mean, it just looks to me like this team is much improved than they were from last season. Their top wide receiver, Chris Mitchell, he stepped up as that wide receiver 1. He's got 10 receptions, 203 yards, and 2 touchdowns so far this season. So he's off to a great start.
Yeah, and sometimes, when you have a younger team, it's you just got to learn how to win those close games. You got to learn how to win those tough games. I mean, they really outplayed La Tech in week 0 and should have won the game, and they just couldn't get it done. And that's some of the growth that you want to see as I know Coach Mack down there is hoping to see with them, but they got a big test at home. Also in the American, you got Houston going to Rice. Houston, looked pretty darn good against UTSA. Well, I mean, we could say UTSA looks pretty bad.
Yeah.
But that's going to be tough for Rice. Florida A&M's going to South Florida. Hope to God my Bulls get a dub, boys. I'm rooting for them. Then Memphis going to Arkansas State. Man, Butch Jones has got to start winning some games.
Has to.
I saw his press conference, and I know they asked him about people calling for his head, and he said, most of the people calling for his head are from a previous school, which I imagine is Tennessee Vol fans, which, as we know, are delusional on social media. But, he needs to do something there. You can't just hire a big name. You got to see some results down there at Arkansas State. Charlotte, Biff Poggi goes to Maryland. Maryland's got Tua Tagovailoa's little brother down there throwing the ball around. We actually watched the Poggi documentary on ESPN Plus Thursday night. Pretty good little doc.
Yeah.
It's a different animal, Maryland, than South Carolina State.
They are, and one of the storylines in this game is Poggi coached forever in Maryland, so he's got a lot of ties back there. But I don't know how much that's going to help them on the field. The defense was sort of their bright spot last week, but if they can't score points, that's going to be a problem. And against that team last week, I thought their offense should have been a little more effective.
Yeah.
It just looked like it was a struggle at times to really move the ball and get in the end zone. They kind of figured it out late, but it was close early on. But I think this is going to be a tougher game. That offense has got to show up, got to be able to put points, because I don't know if the defense can stifle this Maryland offense quite as much as they did last week.
That's right. And the defense is very good. They got a lot of talent, especially on that defensive line we talked about when we went up there in the spring. But again, Maryland, this is a better Maryland team than traditionally as well. So they're I don't know if they're quite a contender in the Big Ten, but they're pretty good, and a lot of talent all over the roster. So big test for Charlotte. Temple at Rutgers, man, this is an underrated game. I mean, both teams are traditionally bad, but Temple, we thought, Jeff, you had them as your dark horse, and Rutgers, you never really know. I think Temple has a shot in this game, but they're just going to have to play a really clean game in order to get it done. No turnovers, no dumb penalties like we talked about last week. Going into Conference USA, Jeff, I'm going to go to you first. You're always a homer.
Big-time homer.
The Blue Raiders, our Blue Raiders of Middle Tennessee, hung tight with Alabama last week. Now they go to Missouri, who they've played really well in the past.
Yep.
Who is not Alabama.
Who is exactly not Alabama. I think we're 3 touchdown dogs. Do we get it done? Stock usually gets one of these done.
He normally has a signature kind of Power 5 or big game win, and I think they do. I think it's going to be tough coming off that loss. I know the score looked bad, but our other co-host Jesse Swagbear Grisham was in attendance last week at Tuscaloosa and really came out of that game feeling confident about the Blue Raiders, especially on defense.
Yep.
And that's what we said in our preview show. Me and you, Sprouse, got to go watch training camp for a day, and that's what we saw as well.
Yeah.
I think this team is going to be led by their defense. Stock always preaches, turnovers, win the turnover battle, and it starts up front with that D line: Marley, Cook, Quindarius Dunnigan, and the great linebacking crew in the middle, and then Trey Fluellen in the back end is a star at safety. I think he's a kid that's going to end up playing in the NFL. But first and foremost, that defense has got to get pressure on the quarterback. And then I'm really excited to see Nick Vattiato, the quarterback for the Blue Raiders, and see how effective he can be against this Missouri team. We said Alabama's just different. They're one of the teams that's different, so it's hard to kind of judge against them. But I want to see him be efficient, protect the ball, don't give Missouri extra possessions. And Frank Pizant in this ground game, they're really excited about a couple guys they got in the transfer portal this year. Just excited to see the Blue Raiders come and play. I think they get it done on the road.
Oh, and I think the best thing, as far as we know, is they came out of Tuscaloosa healthy.
Yeah.
And that's the big thing. And they got to hope they come out of this game healthy as well. I mean, that's the big thing anytime you play a quote-unquote money game. You paid a bunch of money to go down there and, supposedly lose. But you want to stay healthy. And, again, you want to play a clean game. You want to just get better and improve and come out of there ready for conference play. Tip, here's one. This is one of the few where the group of five is the favorite in the game. UTEP going to Northwestern. Can Gavin Hardison, he was so inconsistent last year and not great earlier in the year. Can he be good today?
That is the main question. Is this the game where, like Gavin Hardison last year against Boise State, he just comes out and he's hitting every pass and he leads the team to victory? Is that this game? I personally think it is, and it's because what we've talked about on previous podcasts. Northwestern is that football program is just in complete shambles right now.
Yeah, they are.
I think not only they lose this game, I don't see Northwestern winning a game this entire season. And the line is actually flipped a little bit.
Really?
Yeah. So Northwestern's now favored by 1 at home. So it's basically a pick 'em. But I mean, still, when you look at that though, normally the home team usually gets 3 points. So UTEP's still kind of favored in this game, but I think they can definitely get it done. Northwestern lost to that Rutgers team that kind of down, inconsistent Rutgers team we talked about, lost to them 24-7 last week. So yeah, we need Gavin Hardison's going to need to go in there, protect the ball, not turn the ball over, and lead this offense. Because honestly, I don't think Northwestern can score enough points on offense.
No, they're not very good. And they're going to, Northwestern, they always have that thick, long grass, too, trying to slow everybody down because they're so slow. But, that program's a mess right now. So if there's ever a time, UTEP, you want to go up to the Big Ten and get a win, it's today.
Well, I'll say this, too, and UTEP played Incarnate Word last week, got the win, and it seemed like from an offensive standpoint, they really made the decision that we're going to focus on this run game and pound the rock. I mean, you love this, Browse. Deion Hankins had 24 carries, 174 yards, and then their number 2 guy, Torrance Burgess, had another 85 yards on the ground and a touchdown. So I think they're going to stick to that ground game to lead it, control the clock, and then try and give Hardison, some time to go play action, give him a little bit of time to see what the defense is doing, and he's got to be able to hit some plays.
Yeah, Jeff, another one, Liberty, New Mexico State going to Liberty. We were a little bit high on New Mexico State, but we're also pretty high on Liberty. So, their defense looked fantastic a week ago.
They did. And they had 6 turnovers. If your defense can get you, 3, let alone 6, you're looking in great shape. That's extra possessions for your offense. And that offense last week took care of it. Caden Salter ended up being the starting quarterback. He had a very good game, not only in the air, but on the ground. So I look for him to continue to do that today. Diego Pavia has disappointed me so far, but this was the game last year that he had a breakout game, and shocked the world, so to speak, and beat Liberty because nobody was expecting it. So can he have another game like that? It's a possibility, but they haven't shown it yet this far. And with Chadwell and this defense, I think Liberty takes care of business.
Yeah, it's going to be tough for New Mexico State. Northwestern State goes to La Tech. Houston Christian goes to Western Kentucky. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but that is formerly Houston Baptist, is it not?
I believe that's right, yeah.
And which
right.
little storyline in that game is where Zappy and Zach Kitley and all of them guys came from. I don't know that there's any connection today, but a little bit of a storyline there. But, yeah, I think Western's going to put up a ton of points. one to look out for. This is an interesting game. Air Force going to Sam Houston, who, by the way, Sam Houston was my dark horse in Conference USA. I'll just leave that. Their defense looked phenomenal against BYU. Now, they didn't score a point offensively, but they held BYU to 14 points. Now, Air Force, I don't know how much Sam Houston has seen the option before. I think Air Force is a little bit tougher, off defensively to stop if you've not been playing against it all the time. But Air Force needs to be solid in that game. They need to be clean. Again, they can't turn it over. They have to get the run game going. But that's an interesting game that I wouldn't right away say Air Force just goes in there and blows.
Well, they probably just need to focus more, I guess, probably on the defensive side of the ball in this game, right? Try and limit Sam Houston to another 0 point showing this week. Because I mean that Air Force offense with the option. I mean, I'm not going to say it can run itself, but they've better than any of us. They practice and do that so much. It's kind of just like second nature to them running that offense. And if you can limit Sam Houston to less than 10 points in this game, I think Air Force comes out and wins this game.
Yeah, what were we saying on the way over here? The over-under on that is 36?
37 points.
37 points.
Take the under.
Take the under. The final score of that game is going to be like 24-3.
Yeah, and I think one of the biggest reasons why is, especially last week, Keegan Shoemaker throws 3 interceptions. You're just not going to win very many games when you give extra opportunities to the opposing offense, and especially if you do that against Air Force,
you're not going to get many more.
Have a chance.
You're not going to get many more possessions than
exactly.
that. We talk about the Coastal UCLA game last week, and Chip Kelly was complaining they only had 4 possessions in the first half, and that's Chip Kelly. And that's not going against Air Force, who, as we talk about, they get 3 first downs on a drive. You look up, and there's 3 minutes left in the quarter. So Sam Houston, they cannot turn it over in that game.
And the line has actually gone down to 36 now, so it is going down as we speak. So get it while you can.
Keep going. It ain't going to get down to 26, so keep it going. Let's get into the MAC. Before we do that, thank you again to the Hangout here at the Boardwalk at the Beach, Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, just a short drive away from Conway. About 26 and a half minutes. Again, what an awesome place. They're getting ready to open up. I think at 12 o'clock when the games start, once this rain completely clears out, this place is going to be rocking. There's going to be a lot of, I don't know how many TVs we got in here, but they're all over the place. And then you got patios outside, you got upstairs, downstairs. Just a great, great place to watch football on a Saturday afternoon. But in the MAC, we don't really have a lot of fantastic games in the MAC this week. Ball State goes to Georgia. Last year Kent State played Georgia relatively tight, but good luck. New Hampshire goes to Central Michigan. Eastern Illinois goes to Bowling Green. Jeff, Western Michigan at Syracuse is interesting. We don't really know a whole lot about Syracuse, but it's a 24.5-point spread on this game.
Yeah, and that's a pretty big spread. I think Syracuse is the better team overall. But if Western Michigan can run the ball effectively like they did last week with Jalen Buckley, 30 carries, 194 yards on the ground, 1 touchdown. I don't know if he'll quite get that against this Orange defense, but if they can do that, they can control the clock, hang around. They might be able to steal one at the end. So I'm excited to see Western Michigan and see how they play against Syracuse. But ultimately, I think Syracuse is going to get the W.
Yeah, and that's what Western Michigan will have to do is 30 carries for a running back. But like you said, I don't know that he's going to get close to the 200-yard mark. But that's what they would have to do to win that game. You got Miami, Ohio going to UMass. Southern Illinois at Northern Illinois. Northern Illinois don't have a let-up game after the big win a week ago. So that's where and that game, Southern Illinois, by the way, is like one of the wildest schools in the country as far as tailgating and partying. So they're probably going to bring a lot of people up there. So it would probably be a really fun environment. Texas Southern going to Toledo. Kent State going to Arkansas. I don't think they have much of a shot there. Morgan State at Akron. Fordham at Buffalo. Eastern Michigan at Minnesota. Man, aside from the game itself, I got to say, PJ Fleck, he's got to tone it down a notch. The guy, talk about the gimmicks and all that, but you've been rowing the boat now at Minnesota for how many years? You haven't really done anything. But anyway, does Eastern Michigan have a shot to win that game?
Unfortunately, I don't think they do. They're 20-point dogs in this game. I don't know if they have enough offense to keep up with Minnesota today.
Yeah, no, I agree. I agree with you. I hope they do. In the Mountain West Conference, UNLV goes to Michigan. That's going to be tough. Cal Poly goes to San Jose State. Portland State goes to Wyoming. Again, Wyoming don't have a let-up game. That's in typical Group of 5 fashion. That's what happens. Now, fortunately, you're not playing. It normally happens. You get the big Power 5 win, and then you come home in a conference game or something like that, and you lay an egg. But these should be a little bit easier opponents that they should be able to take care
Well,
of.
I'll say this, too, as far as Wyoming goes. Defense usually shows up week to week. I think they'll be fine. When you're an offensive-led team and you have a big win, a lot of times that's where you'll see that next week where they just come out kind of stale and flat. But I think Wyoming's fine in that one.
Yeah. You got Idaho going to Nevada. This is a game here that is very interesting. UCLA at San Diego State. UCLA, who played this Coastal team a week ago, looks pretty good on defense, and we know San Diego State ain't very good on offense. But it's weirdly enough might be a defensive game.
Yeah, I'm interested to see this game because you look at Coastal last week, who played UCLA, and they had a chance to win that game, but it wasn't really because of their defense. Although that Coastal defense did have multiple turnovers, I just don't know if San Diego State has the offensive firepower. Can they control the line of attack? Because their thing is pound the ball with that stable of running backs that we saw, who's been very effective at the start of the season. I just don't know if they're going to be able to do that. Coastal hung in there because they have the ability to throw the ball. Yeah. San Diego State is not as talented as Coastal Carolina is throwing the ball. So interesting dynamic there. I think Chip Kelly's offense still rolls against San Diego State, but it's at home in San Diego.
Yep.
But I don't know how much of a home field advantage that's going to be.
Yeah, they haven't been selling a ton of tickets, and that's the thing. Even if their defense holds a high-powered offense to 21 points,
can you score 21?
I don't think San Diego State can score 21 points. I mean, they've been struggling for a long time. Also in the Mountain West, you got Tennessee Tech going to New Mexico, Idaho State at Utah State, Eastern Washington going to Fresno State, another one of those. Fresno coming off the big win. Eastern Washington is nobody to play with now. Very good FCS program. And then Albany going to Hawaii. I know everybody wants to get into the Sun Belt. You guys probably want to hear us pick against Coastal Carolina. We got a bunch of really good Sun Belt games, and then we're going to go into our games of the week, which there are some good ones.
Well, they're going back and forth in the live chat.
That's
I'm
amazing.
looking at it. We got Steeple PC's in there. Zachary Branner's in there. Our boy Caskey's in there. Jonathan Boring's in there. All the crews in there, and they're just going back and forth about these games. So I think it's the perfect time to get into the Sun Belt.
Well, my question, Jeff, is where is Steeple_PC_51?
He's still at the. I believe he said he's with the in-laws, having some stuff getting down here. So, but he says he thinks he'll get down here about 3:30. He's going to go find Brian Quigley's tailgate. So I think that is where we need to be.
That's
around
the play.
3:30.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know if Brian Quigley would appreciate this or not appreciate this, but I will say we've been in Myrtle Beach, Conway for about a week, and everybody said, if you want a tailgate, go find Brian Quigley, just ask him. And so if you're a Jacksonville State fan that made the trip, if you're a new Coastal fan, if you're neutral, you're just checking out college football, find that man. And
You'll find us.
You'll find us, and I think you'll have a pretty good time. We should be doing the bats, whatever that means. Here in a couple hours. But let's start at Troy going to Kansas State. If you asked me about this game preseason, I would have been all over Troy. But Troy's defense did not look like the same defense last week, giving up a ton of points to Stephen F. Austin. Now, again, biggest jump is going to be week 1 to week 2. They're going to get up for this game going to Manhattan, Kansas. Did they lose? Did they lose too much on the defensive side of the ball, Tip?
I don't want to. I don't want to panic after just 1 week of performance, against Stephen F. Austin. But like what Murph just said, usually it's your defense that is consistent from week to week. So I think there is a slight reason to panic here and to say maybe they did lose too much. But we are sure going to find out today because I'm pretty sure I don't know a ton about Kansas State. I know they're ranked, and I'm sure that their offense is pretty good. They're the defending Big 12 champions,
right.
if that's correct. So big test today for this Troy defense.
Yeah, well, Kansas State, and they lose Deuce Vaughn. They lose quite a bit. And Troy, for what it's worth, last year, if you remember, Troy relied on their defense a lot early, and then it was the last 3 or 4 games when they finally found that running game. They did have that running game last week. And so can they rely on it? Can that travel to Kansas State?
That's going to have to be the key, right?
100%.
The running game's going to have to be there. Keep Kansas State offense on the sideline, control the time of possession, and then you got to convert when you're in the red zone.
That's right.
That's got to turn into touchdowns, and don't turn the ball over, and you'll have a chance to win this game and keep it close.
Yeah, and that's exactly where I was going to go, is limit Kansas State's offensive possessions, control that clock. But this defensive line for Troy has got to wreak havoc. They've got to control the line of scrimmage, control it up front, get in the backfield on pass plays, and that'll allow that secondary for Troy to make plays, possibly get some interceptions. But if they're not getting pressure up front, it's going to be a long day because you're relying on a lot. And I just think when you lost your captain, you lost the quarterback of your defense last year. I just think that carries a lot of extra factors that you don't realize at the time when you're missing a guy like Carlton Martial. So I don't think they've quite found that leader yet. Maybe he'll emerge today, but it's going to be a great game to watch.
Well, and one more thing on that game is last year, they lost that heartbreaker in Boone, and it was almost like the team took on a new identity. And maybe, I don't think Coach Summerall would allow this to happen, but maybe they got a little bit full of themselves and they need some sort of adversity to change their season around like it did last year. James Madison going to Virginia. They're favored by a touchdown, I believe, in this game. Virginia, they're on some tough times right now too. But James Madison really looking to probably cement themselves as the best team in the state.
Yeah.
In this game. So looking forward to see what James Madison can do there.
Well, all you Duke fans that want to come on Twitter and social media and in the comments on our shows, this is your opportunity to show up. What kind of team are you? Jordan McLeod's going to be the starter at quarterback this week. Barnett did not have a great game last week. McLeod comes in the second half, puts up good numbers, and that offense really started rolling. Kalen Black had a great ground attack behind that experienced offensive line. So here's your opportunity. You're going into hostile territory. You can have a big signature win with your program in their second year. Go out there and get it done.
Yeah, 100%. And I think they will. Like you said, for all you James Madison fans that get all worked up when we don't pick you, I'm picking you. So congratulations. App State going to North Carolina, a little rubber match. Third game in this series. That game we were at last year was probably the best, most exciting football game I've ever seen in person. Just absolutely unbelievable. App State didn't look great last week against Gardner-Webb. North Carolina looks to be a bit better. Tip, do you think the Fighting Mountaineers have a chance in Chapel Hill?
I think they have a better chance than the 19.5-point spread that's out there right now for North Carolina. But North Carolina is just bringing back so much talent and so much experience on this roster. I mean, their quarterback Drake May. I mean, he's being talked about as a first-round pick in this upcoming NFL draft, and so it's gonna be tough. And this game is at UNC. It's not a home game for App State this week. Their quarterback Ryan Berger was injured last week, so it looks like Joey Aguilar is going to be the starting quarterback for this game. He looked good last week, so hopefully he can get this offense going. And I think it starts with Nate Noel in the backfield. Last year, in the App State versus North Carolina game, Nate Noel had 14 carries for 116 yards and 2 touchdowns. And one of those was an early, like a 55, 60-yard rush touchdown. So they're going to need explosive plays on offense like that, and I think it starts with Nate Noel. And with Cam Peoples gone this year, if he can get that carries numbers up to 20-plus and control the ground game and keep Drake May on the sideline, it can hopefully keep this game close in the second half. But it's just what we keep preaching. Limit the number of turnovers on offense, control the clock, run the ball, and score touchdowns when you get into the red zone.
Well, and I will say this about it being in Chapel Hill. We know one thing is the App State faithful is going to travel.
They'll
That's
be there.
right.
Yeah.
They're going to be there. So if they're close at the end or if they are winning at the end, it's going to be loud in favor of App State now too. Yeah. So that's something to look out for in that game. I don't think that North Carolina is going to – I don't think that they think that they're just Big Brother anymore in that series. I think they might try to pretend like they are. But, I mean, we've seen it the last couple times they've played. It's been a pretty even matchup. So, looking forward to that one. Southeast Louisiana going to South Alabama in Mobile. South Alabama looking to get back on track there. I think they will. The Ragin' Cajuns go to Old Dominion. Louisiana still not set at quarterback, Jeff. I mean, I think they've got their guy.
Yeah.
But still not looking great and having to rely on the offensive line. Also, side note, shout out to the Ragin' Cajun faithful. Ton of students at their first home game last week. So that was something that was a big problem last year. And it looked like they had a pretty good student showing. But, Old Dominion, I just don't think is very good, unfortunately.
No, and they they lost last week against Virginia Tech. And they were basically one-dimensional on offense, and if they're going to continue to be that way, it's going to be tough sledding because defenses can just load extra guys in the box and stop your offense. So I think Louisiana, I think they cover the 6, to be honest.
Yeah, I think they do too. Interesting game. UConn goes to Georgia State. Really don't have a clue how that game's going to go. UConn and Georgia State, they're very similar, and you just have no idea which team's going to show up. So that could go either way. And then Lamar goes to Monroe. Again, for La Monroe, I know it wasn't a Power 5 win, but a big win. So don't have a letdown game here today. And then Southern Miss going to Florida State. Florida State looks like they are pretty good. And Southern Miss, they're going to be pretty good too, but I just think they're a little overmatched.
I would like to see them compete, though. And it seems they found, at least for now, a quarterback that can be efficient in the pass game, which is going to help Frank Gore. So if he can go, in Tallahassee and have a good game, that's a bright spot for the season, rest of the season going forward. Yeah,
well, I'd like to see him compete. I'd like to see Frank Gore Jr. Little history there. He probably hates Florida State because his dad's a Miami guy. And Southern Miss, they do tend to compete in these Power 5 games. So looking forward to see what they do there. You guys ready to make some picks? Ready to talk games of the week or what?
Let's do it.
Ready to do it. So we got 5 of them here. Of course, our game of the week, we're here at Coastal Carolina's Jacksonville State at Coastal. We'll pick that one last. But there are some monster games in the group of 5. First one, if there was ever a time where I wanted to go to New Orleans 2 weeks in a row, which is, you hear it in my voice. I'm still in shambles, guys. Okay? You go to New Orleans one weekend, you go to Myrtle Beach, which, by the way, I tweeted about it. College football campus tour. Mike, you are a nutcase, bro.
Mad man.
I mean, a nutcase. I'm driving, and I got no voice. I'm tired. I'm soaking wet.
Some people just aren't cut out for life on the open road, my friend.
Oh, they're not. But anyway, Ole Miss at Tulane, sellout crowd in New Orleans. There probably will be a decent Ole Miss showing, which pisses me off, but that's part of it.
Courtney Gaucher, the assistant AD, said they're only allotting 3,000 tickets for Ole Miss.
That's what I'm talking about. I wish these group of 5 schools would do more of that. Like, don't just let this Power 5 school come in there and sell all their tickets. And I mean, put your foot down a little bit. But Ole Miss going to Tulane, I want to see Patrick Jenkins against the Ole Miss, a big SEC offensive line, and I want to see, I can't even remember the guy's name, Monroe, the big corner, the big, tall, long corner that looked like an outside linebacker. I want to see him going against a pretty loaded Ole Miss receiving core, and then, of course, Michael Pratt going against an SEC defense. But, Jeff, I'm going to start with you first. What are you looking forward to in that game? What's Tulane got to do to win? Because they are 1-touchdown underdogs at home.
I think Tulane, what they have to do is let Michael Pratt be the guy. This is going to be his signature game. his moment. You're at home. You got the crowd behind you. That student section's going to be rocking. You've trusted him last year. He's got the great experience from the Cotton Bowl. He's going to draw from that. And I just think you just let him be him. He was so efficient last week, 14 of 15 passing, 4 touchdowns, and then another, and this was the key, I think, in a lot of tight situations when they did get pressure last week, he was able to get out of the pocket. He only had 39 yards rushing, but they were so effective and timely rushing yards. So let Michael Pratt be the guy. Want to see Jaquan Jackson on the outside. He had a big game last week, but that was against South Alabama. They're going against Ole Miss. You're not going to get, I don't think, as many one-on-one opportunities, especially after that game last week. So excited to see what he's going to do. And then you mentioned it, that defensive front for Tulane, you have got to get pressure on Jackson Dart. If you can do that, you're going to force errant throws in that secondary. They're going to be able to get turnovers or knock the ball down, which is going to stop that heavy pass offense. But let Michael Pratt be the guy and let that D-line pin the ears back and go get the quarterback.
Tip, what do you think?
Yeah, so kind of to piggyback off what Murph was just saying, Tulane on the offensive side of the ball, I think this is going to be a game of constant adjustments, right? So I think what worked so well for them last week against South Alabama might not necessarily work as well and for the entirety of the game against Ole Miss. So this is going to be something where look for the mismatches, it's just going to be constant, because Ole Miss is going to be doing the same thing on the defensive side of the ball. They're going to be trying to give Michael Pratt a bunch of different looks to try and confuse him, but just watch and see what's going on when you're on the sideline. Make those constant changes that you need to do, because they have the talent to do it. There is absolutely no doubt about that. And on the defensive side of the ball, got to get some turnovers. You got to get some extra possessions in this game, and which you want obviously to lead to touchdowns for Tulane on the offensive side of the ball. So go out there, show Ole Miss that you belong in this game, because they're not getting any respect. The line just keeps going up. Ole Miss is favored by 8 now. It's just everyone thinks Ole Miss is just going to go in there and blow them out. Tulane has an incredible opportunity here, and they have a chance to win this game at home.
Well, and I'll say this, and we've seen this week a little bit more publicity coming to Tulane, to Michael Pratt. We've seen a little bit of the national media start to recognize what we're dealing with this Tulane team. Now, I'm always the conspiracy theorist. They're probably doing that in order to make Ole Miss look better, because they think Ole Miss is going to win this game handily. Now, that being said, Tulane, this is the recipe for the Group of 5. You come off a big Power 5 bowl win last year. You come out in week 1 and have a pretty dominant performance against one of the best teams in the Group of 5, and now you get a ranked SEC opponent coming in there to play. Now, what did we say last week? I know Ole Miss played Mercer, but what did they have? 10 receivers with a catch last week, and Zachary Franklin was not one of them. Yeah. I think he's still hurt. I think he's still out. Fortunately for Tulane in that regard, but Ole Miss is going to be a lot, and Lane Kiffin is going to have a lot of stuff. But Jeff, I mean, you guys both mentioned it. You get pressure on Jackson Dart, especially up the middle with my guy. Patrick Jenkins is maybe my favorite player to watch now after that game. So that's going to be the difference in this game, if they get pressure and not allow all those weapons on the outside to get free in the back end. Another one. This is sorry, we got to make picks. Jeff, who are you picking?
Oh, are you kidding me? I'm going with the Heisman hopeful. Tulane is going to beat Ole Miss at home. That crowd's going to be jumping, and the wave is going to roll, baby.
Roll wave.
Yeah, green wave, winning this game.
I can't stand Ole Miss.
I can't either. 2 weeks in a row, are we at the 2 best color combinations in the Group of 5? Going Tulane, I think, is number 1. I love Tulane's.
That's good.
And then Coastal with the teal, the unique teal. 2 very unique mascots, unique logos, unique color. I'm having a hard time with this game, guys. I really am. My heart says Tulane, my head says Ole Miss, but I'm going to go with my gut. I'm taking the wave too. I'm going 3 for 3. I can't be down there spending time with those guys and seeing them live on the field, and I just want to see them get it done so bad today. And I think if they do, boy, they are in a really good spot to not only make a New Year's bowl game, but potentially something more. But we're going through
Playoffs?
Maybe. It's early
Say it
in the
now.
season. Tulane, don't listen to this. You got rat poison there, as John Summerall would say. Interesting game in Statesboro. This is another place that's going to be absolutely rocking today. UAB, a little bit of unknown with UAB, but Jeff, you brought up their offensive stat line from a week ago. They were really clean, really solid, put up a ton of yards, a ton of points. And then Georgia Southern, we're looking for that high-powered offense to really get going today too.
Yeah, and the stat line that's just, it'd be Michael Pratt's stat line was 14 to 15, right? It's a good day at the office, efficient, not a ton of attempts. You get Jacob Zeno last week, 38 of 41. Most people can't throw routes on air 41 times to complete at 90%. Okay, but 90% completion, 291 yards in the air, 3 touchdowns, 14 different receivers touched the ball last week. And I know it was against, a smaller opponent playing up, but that's a ridiculous stat line in any type of football game. And here's what I think the key is for UAB. I think their defense is really, really good. And it's led, and that's experienced secondary with our former teammate, coach of the defensive backs, Kenneth Gilstrap. He's going to do a great job. He's done a great job in the offseason training these guys up, and they're going to have to be effective stopping these receivers, stopping this pass game for Georgia Southern, because Davis Brin, Tulsa transfer, is there now, and he has got tons of weapons around him, the most weapons that he's had in his career. And we saw that last week with Georgia Southern. They were able to move the ball. That running game really stood out to me, though. Jalen White with 19 carries, 125 yards and a touchdown. If they can control the ground game, it's going to be tough for UAB. So this is actually one of my favorite games of the weekend. I'm looking forward to watch.
You didn't give me anything on where I think you're going to go on your pick. Tip, what do you got?
Well, I think a big question in this game is Georgia Southern's defense going to be able to slow down UAB running back Jermaine Brown Jr.? I think this is a Jermaine Brown Jr. type of game because it's what we've been talking about all day today. Georgia Southern has a great offense. So what do you try and do when you're playing against a great offense? You try and keep them on the sideline, right? Yep. So and UAB has the running game to do that and to be able to control the clock. But this is the first true test for both of these teams so far this year. So really excited to see both of these teams play against each other today. If you want me to go ahead and make my pick, Sprouse, I will. I'm with you on this, Sprouse. It's going to be rocking at Georgia Southern today. The atmosphere is going to be incredible. So I'm going to go with that. I'm going to go with Georgia Southern wins this game close at home. To set 7 points, going to be honest, I think it's a lot. I think this is a 3 or 4 point game, but give me Georgia Southern wins this game at home.
Speaking of crowd rocking, I saw Georgia Southern former punter Anthony Beck, shout out to you, brother, was tweeting it's his first time tailgating a game. He was looking for where to go. Buddy, I got news for you. You go anywhere in Statesboro and you're going to have a good time. But I would recommend you go find Lenny and Terry down there. Right next to the new indoor is where they were last year. And I think you'll find yourself having a great time. But I think that's the key to the game. Honestly, I really do. I think if it is. Well, that's the key to Jeff. That's the key to football, my friend. Look, we don't do this to go to football games. I care less.
1,000%.
We go to tailgate. That's why we're going to find Brian Quigley after this to have a good time. No, but I do think, like Tip said, I think 7 is a lot. I don't think that UAB will allow it to get that out of hand. But that's where I think if you have a 3 or 4 point game, that crowd at Paulson, that crowd in Statesboro is going to be electric. And I'm picking Georgia Southern in this.
I guess that leaves up to me, right?
You only got, yeah.
Well, you talked about the tailgate, the game, the atmosphere, all that's going to be great. I'm sure the Blue Room's going to be jumping. They're going to be waiting for the game to get over. But they are going to be disappointed in Statesboro. I think the UAB Blazers, led by Trent Dilfer, he's got me sold. I know it's just a week 1 performance, but you have a performance like that, especially from your quarterback. He was prepped and ready to go. I think he's going to be prepped and ready to go again. I agree, though. I think it's going to be a very, very close game.
I think it's going to be, honestly, I think it might be one of the most competitive games of the weekend.
Agreed.
That's why we have it as our game of the week. I don't think anybody in the national media is talking about this game. But this is a game, if you are in Statesboro, man, I know they do, but be in there early, be loud, be engaged, because this is a gigantic game. So you're going UAB, so 2-1 there. UCF going to Boise State, rematch of that awesome game in Orlando from a couple years ago in the pouring rain. Boise State, we don't know, right? Because I was high on them, thinking they're a potential playoff team, and then Washington put me in my place real quick. A lot of travel for UCF. Going to be some altitude up there for the Florida guys. So that's interesting. I don't know a ton about UCF. I'm going to start with you, Tip. They're 3.5-point favorites. What do you think?
Yeah, well, I know John Reese Plumlee is still their quarterback, and I mean he's got the experience. He has the talent. This is a very good UCF offense, and that's what makes me really nervous for Boise State in this game. Now, granted, they are at home in this one, and you mentioned the altitude. That can give them advantage, especially in the second half. That, like you just mentioned, Boise State did not look very good against Washington last week. Boise State has to find a way to get the running game going with George Holani. I mean, they have, if they want to have a chance to win this game, they have got to get the ground game going. They have got to start running the ball effectively to keep this game close and to take advantage of the home crowd and the home field advantage in that second half if they can keep this game close.
Yeah, and I'm a little worried about the Broncos in this game. I think we don't know. Last year they started the season slow and then they finished the year pretty good. They got a lot better. So that's what you hope to see. And we don't know yet. Washington might be one of the best 3 or 4 teams in the country. We just don't know yet. But they've got to show up, like you said. They've got to establish the run game with Holani and Ginty and Taylon Green, not Jalen Green, ESPN. In case you got tuned in, they called him Jalen Green 4 or 5 times live on the air. I'm wondering what it's on behind us here in this place. I wonder what they've messed up on today. Hopefully Swaggy's watching. He can shoot us a text. But what do you think, Jeff?
Yeah, I think Boise, they ran into a buzzsaw last week in Washington. I think Washington is one of the top teams in the country, and I think that they were trying to prove a point. A marquee win and a big win over a good Boise State team is going to pay dividends for them trying to get in the playoff later. But I think Boise State has a shot. They play so much better at home. That's been kind of their MO throughout, their history. But this defense has got to get pressure on Plumlee, and he's a great runner. This UCF attack had a huge game on the ground last week. So if you can stifle that run game a little bit, because you're not going to completely eliminate it. You're just not against Malzahn and that mad scientist brain he has up there. But if you can get them into 3rd and long situations, that's where I think you can get them to 4th down. Because I'm not sold on Plumlee as a thrower. He had 2 interceptions last week, and that was against Kent State, who Kent State is just, they're in a rough spot right now. So if you can get them into 3rd and long, force them to really try and push the ball downfield, I think Boise State gets the ball back for that offense. And Taylon Green, I agree with you guys. Start with the ground game. Get that effective, control the clock, and then don't solely put it on Taylon Green's shoulders. He's been able to do it. I just don't know if he's quite there yet. But it's going to be a very, very tight game, kind of a rematch like you guys said from a few years back. So excited to watch this game as well.
Who are you picking?
I think that UCF wins narrowly. I just think that Boise State, they got some things to figure out. But by the time they get into the Mountain West Conference play, I think they'll be ready to go. I just don't know if they're quite there yet.
Tip?
Yeah, unfortunately, I think UCF goes to Boise State and wins this game. I think it's close. But I think UCF wins by probably a touchdown or so.
I could see it going that way. I really could. And it might go that way. But I'm not about to sit up here and let you two influence me on my Boise State predictions. And I think this is the coming out party. You mentioned Jermaine Brown at UAB having a coming out party today in Statesboro. I'm talking Ashton Ginty coming out party today. And it needs to be if they want to win, to be quite honest with you.
Yeah.
All the Boise faithful were all over Twitter telling us about how good he was, about this 2-headed monster that they had. And we need to see it. And then Taylor Green, you just got to don't do anything crazy, man. Just manage the game. Don't try to do anything that you don't normally do. Don't try to go win the game single-handedly because you have a good running game. You have a good defense that can keep you in this game. So don't try to do too much. And I think Boise State's going to come away this is one, same thing, I think, coming down to the last possession of the game, whichever way it goes. You know, if you looked at this game preseason, and I told you this was going to be a game of the week, and I told you this is going to be one of the most electric crowds in the state of Texas. I mean, it's easily the biggest game in the state of Texas this weekend. Texas State and the Fighting G.J. Kinneys going to UTSA, the story of two teams. I mean, the low national expectation of a Texas State just comes out there and shocks the world at Baylor, and the extremely high expectation of UTSA goes out there and lays an egg against Houston. So the question today is, which one of them shows up? And I think if you asked me a week ago, UTSA would have maybe overlooked a Texas State. Well, they ain't now. I mean, UTSA is still the favorite in this game, Jeff, but can Frank Harris get back on track? He tweeted something the other day, which I don't like, to be honest with you, but he tweeted that, he promised he would play better, something like that. But, boy, Texas State's got a lot of momentum. Talk about national coverage out of nowhere. G.J. Kinney and the transfers are getting the same coverage as Coach Prime in Colorado. So what's your initial thoughts? You think Frank Harris shows up today?
I think he plays better. And these are two teams, guys, that are like, I've been high on both of them. I mean, we've all been high on San Antonio, especially after the conference championship game last year. But, I mean, from the moment that we got down to San Marcos a couple years ago, I mean, I was bought in. I was sold that they were building something down there. Then Kenny comes in from Incarnate Word. And if you just look at his success, not only as a player, but as a coach everywhere he's been, and now he has a signature win against Baylor. And they were one of the teams, I think, besides Colorado and besides maybe SMU, that crushed the transfer portal about as well as anybody has. And that was the question before the season. Can he make it gel all at once? Well, he had a lot of guys from Incarnate Word. I think they help that locker room come together, realize expectations, and they showed up against Baylor. TJ Finley, the big transfer, had a massive game. Everybody was talking about him last week, as they should. But I think two guys that didn't get a ton of coverage. Running back Ismail Mahdi had a huge game against Baylor, a lot of big plays. And then Joey Hobart, might have the catch of the season down on the sideline, one-handed, reaching back behind us. Just massive, massive big plays by this Texas State offense, and they're going to have that today. Their defense gave up 31 points against Baylor, which is an offense I don't think is very, very good. I think San Antonio's offense is a whole lot better than Baylor's. So they're going to have to come and be ready to play. I just don't think Frank Harris has a bad game like that again. If he does, then we're going to be having a different conversation next week. But I think they need to rely on Kavorian Barnes in this game a lot more. And they did last week, but I felt like they kind of got away from him just kind of the way the Houston game went. But lean on Barnes and then play off of him, and I think it's going to be a very exciting game.
Well, UTSA's offense is better than Baylor's if they don't throw 3 interceptions.
Correct.
So that's the key. And they're really right up the street from each other. And then there's the Incarnate Word connection is also right there in that area. So this is, great for both programs.
Yes.
If they can both continue on this trajectory upwards. Great for that whole area. Two sort of different types of cities or towns, but they're so close to each other. There's so much connection there. But let me tell you, I think that dome is going to be louder than it was when we went for the North Texas Conference Championship game a year ago, Tip. And, can Texas State replicate their performance of a week ago?
I think they definitely can. So I think the key to this game comes down to kind of what Jeff just mentioned, how Frank Harris plays in this game. If he turns the ball over like he did last week, TJ Finley in this new high-powered Texas State offense, I know UTSA's defense is elite and very good, but I think this Texas State offense, if if Frank Harris is turning the ball over, especially early, Texas State could be up 2 or 3 scores quickly, and then UTSA is in a spot where they're having to play catch up, and they cannot utilize Convorian Barnes like they need to. And to throw another variable in there, I haven't seen anything about the playing status of JT Clark, if he's going to play or not.
Questionable still.
Still questionable. If he doesn't play, I really do. I think that limits UTSA's upside on offense, like it did last week against Houston. So I'm looking at those two things. Is JT Clark going to play? And I think this game comes down to one person and one person only. It's how Frank Harris is going to play.
Well, and if it does get into a situation where Texas State has a 2-touchdown lead early, then you're going to force Frank Harris to start making some, maybe being a little more aggressive, which could lead to some turnovers. So that's where that's where these games could start shifting, and that's where, if you're just watching and you're like, man, why is he making these errant throws? It's like, well, they're going to make different kind of decisions depending on the score, depending on the situation in the game. But I just cannot see UTSA doing that twice in a row. There's just no way.
Yeah, Traylor, these are both two phenomenal coaches that are going up against each other. And Traylor, I think, is going to have these guys ready to go. You're at home, so you're going to have the extra juice you might not have had at Houston. But this is going to be an awesome game to watch.
Yeah, really, really fired up for it. I'm picking UTSA. I can't. And to be honest, I'm picking UTSA. What's the line on this? 14?
14.
I think UTSA is going to cover. I think they're going to show up and just completely dominate this game.
Yeah.
Jeff?
And I think it's going to be a tight game. I think, again, coming off that high, that big win from Baylor, we talk about it. It wasn't the defense last week that won it for Texas State. It was the offense. So can that offense shows up? I think they do, but I agree with you that UTSA, I think, comes away with this win. They were also, I got to stay true to my pick. I picked them to win the American. I think they're going to do that. I think they get back on track, but I think it's a very competitive game. I don't think it's a blowout.
What's the name of the parking lot? What is it? Lot C is where the Meep Nation and all those guys are getting after it.
I think so.
Something like that.
Great
That place
tailgate.
is going to be absolutely ridiculous today. I can't imagine.
Steeple doesn't like the pick, by the way.
He likes Texas State.
He does like Texas State.
I got to give Steeple credit because he's a coastal guy. And I bet you La Creme Brulee down there in San Marcos hates coastal. But Steeple just, what did he say? They passed the eye test.
That's the eye test.
Well, Tip, who are you picking?
I think Texas State
he's letting Steeple
is gonna be ready. They're ready to come into enemy territory and just play that. I don't want to say like play a villain, but they're ready to come in there and show them that they belong in this game. I absolutely think Texas State covers that 14 points, no question about that. But I think UTSA, I don't think you see two bad performances from Frank Harris in back-to-back weeks. It just doesn't happen. So I think Frank Harris is going to have a much better game today, and I have UTSA winning close this game. But UTSA at home get the win.
Let me propose this question really quick before we get on to Jacksonville State and Coastal. If Texas State beats UTSA today, are they the favorite?
I'm going to go ahead and book my ticket for the championship. Yeah.
Right?
I try to tell you guys.
What time is that game kicking off? Is that an
This
afternoon?
is a really tough call for me because I love these teams both, on a personal level.
Well, here's what I know. It's San Marcos River I like a little better than the Riverwalk of San Antonio.
That is true.
So if there's an opportunity for a championship game, maybe we'll fly to San Antonio. Maybe
don't get the Troy fans and the South Alabama fans fired up on the group chat, okay?
Well, they better do something today. If G.J. Kinney, did y'all see they had at the media days, they asked all the head coaches who their favorite musical artist was, and all the head coaches, gave your, Luke Combs, Garth Brooks, all these old rock, 80s rock bands, Jimmy Buffett. G.J. Kinney said, Lil Baby. I mean, what a pander to the recruits. I mean, are you kidding me? Dude, ain't no way that guy's...
He's a young cat.
He is a young cat. He is a young cat. But
that game kicks off at 3:30 Eastern, by the way.
So if Texas State can pull that off, I don't know if they do night floating on the San Marcos River, but I bet you they'll figure out a way to do it.
Quigley, I hope you have a TV at your tailgate.
I hope he do. Surely he does, right?
Super fan. It's got to.
Yeah. All right, boys. Jacksonville State at Coastal. We're here. Conway, South Carolina. It's just a short stone's throw away from where we are right now. But this game, again, Jacksonville State's 2-0. They're one of the only teams in the country that's 2-0. They have 2 games now under their belt to try to get better. You have Rich Rod. My concern for Jacksonville State is who's the quarterback. Zion Webb sort of started the season, but then Logan Smothers played better last week, and he's a Nebraska transfer, so he's a, quote-unquote talented guy, higher recruit than Zion Webb. Now, Zion Webb, however, has been in college for 7 years. So he's got the experience, but I don't know if we've seen an announcement on who's getting the start today or who's going to get most snaps. But I think it would be beneficial to Jacksonville State to go with Smothers because I think he's a better player, and I think the team responded better to him at quarterback.
Yeah, I agree, and I think Smothers will be the guy that starts the game. He's shown to be a better passer than Webb, and you gotta at least be able to have that complement. If you're unable to throw the ball, then again defenses can just stack the box on you. But I mean, they are a run first. They're gonna pound the rock, zone read. They'll run some RPO stuff, but they run, averaging 50 rushes a game with this offense, led by Malik Jackson, who's having a phenomenal season to start. So, I mean, you really got, multiple heads of that monster in the backfield between the quarterback and the multiple running backs. So Coastal's defense is going to have their hands full, especially in the middle at the linebacker position. Defensive ends, slow play all the zone reads, don't chase because when you do, they're pulling the ball at the backside and they're going. But this is going to be an awesome game. Cannot wait to see Grayson McCall in this offense live and in person. Basically 2 weeks in a row, in my opinion, you get 2 of the best quarterbacks in all of college football we get to see live. So can't wait to see him. And the man last week, in my opinion, for Coastal, Sam Pickney. I mean, just he's a man. There's no other term to use. He went up and got multiple balls.
He's
the
a dog.
highest target. He's a dog.
Do you have a clip queued up,
I
Jeff?
don't.
Are you
I don't
ready?
have that
prepared for the
yet.
show?
We
Gotta
talked
have dogs.
I mean, that's
about it in the
foreshadowing.
car on the way over.
12 years ago, you foreshadow to a guy like Sam Pickney, we don't need no cats.
He's
Be
a
a
dog.
dog. But anyway, yeah, he is, man. And one thing we were talking about with Matt yesterday, and I think this says something when you're talking about a leader in the locker room. I mean, Sam Pickney's married with a kid. I mean, they have the be a man motto all over the facility in there. And I don't know the kid personally by any means, but he's not some college kid. And I mean, to be able to, I got to tell you this, because I got a hard enough time balancing my wife and kids and not playing a Division I college football at a high level. Yeah. I mean, to be able to do that is incredible. And yeah, like you said, I mean, he had a ridiculous outing.
And that's just it. Like as a father, like you're the leader of your family, right? So like their thing at Coastal Carolina is the one family and also be a man, and they tie perfectly together. And Sam Pickney is exactly what that is and what they're trying to preach at Coastal Carolina.
Yeah, and I got it. We gave him a shout out already. Steeple_PC_51, Sam Pickney's father. But man, thanks to guys like him that have been riding with us since the jump, man, calling into the show every week, tweeting, being supporters of us. You guys are the reason we try to do this.
Continue to do it.
And yes, 100%. And we appreciate it. We appreciate everything that, Coastal Carolina and the Sun Belt as a whole, all the schools have been very supportive of us. All the fan bases have been very supportive of us. So we thank you for that. I'm going to say this. Jacksonville State's defense is really good. Very good. But I don't think it's UCLA's. So I really, really want to see that offensive line protect Grayson McCall, and I want to see them be able to throw the ball down the field. That's what I'm looking forward to the most. And it's funny, you talk about Jacksonville State running the ball all the time. If you took somebody that hadn't watched a Jacksonville State game and you said Rich Rodriguez was their head coach and they're running the ball 50 and 60 times a game, I mean, you remember that guy's offense at Michigan years past and at Arizona? I mean, so way to, and I don't know if that's going to be his long-term play at Jacksonville State, but way to adjust to what you have on the roster and put a pretty good product on the field. But Tip, what do you think? I mean, what do you think in this game? It's a 2-touchdown spread. I don't know. Jacksonville State's defense is really good, man.
They are. Their defense is very, very talented. And Murph mentioned their running game as well, and he mentioned Malik Jackson and Ron Wiggins back there in the backfield. But I'm just going to be honest with you guys. UTEP and ETSU, the two teams they've played in the first 2 weeks, they're not Coastal Carolina, right? So this is going to be Jacksonville State's first true test in their new FBS stint. They cannot let Coastal Carolina's offense get too far ahead in this game because Jacksonville State's offense is not built to continuously throw the ball down the field or to play from behind 2 or 3 scores or to score a lot of points quickly. That's just not what they're built to do. So if Coastal Carolina gets out to an early 2 or 3 touchdown or score lead, this game could be over relatively early in this game. But so for Coastal Carolina, I think on paper their game plan for this game is simple, at least on paper. Slow down Jacksonville State's running attack on the defensive side of the ball, and on offense, don't turn the ball over and throw the ball at Sam Pinckney. Right? I mean that is the recipe right there. I'm expecting a huge game from this Coastal Carolina offense, but I like you mentioned, Strauss, I'm excited to see the trenches of this game and how well Coastal Carolina's offensive line does against this really good front seven for Jacksonville State. I think that's where the game's going to be won. If you give Grayson McCall the time he needs for those routes to develop down the field, Coastal Carolina could score a ton of points in this game. And I just don't – if that happens, I just don't think Jacksonville State's offense is able to score enough points and to keep up with this Coastal Carolina offense.
Yeah, that's it right there. If Coastal gets ahead, Jacksonville State's not going to be able to run the ball 50 times. And I don't know, Smothers appears to be able to throw it a little bit better than Webb, but can he throw it and keep up? I mean, I don't think you're keeping up with Grayson McCall and Coastal in any kind of a shootout.
No, not throw for throw. But I think this game is going to be a lot closer than people think, especially early on. With them running the ball like they do, their game plan is going to keep Grayson McCall and that offense on the sideline. So I think you're going to see a lot of that, especially early on, not deliberately working the clock, but just naturally how that offense goes. And it's going to take a little bit for that Coastal defense to set in against this zone read offense. But I think ultimately Coastal's got too much firepower on offense. I think the defense does show up. And if Coastal gets ahead, it's going to be tough sledding, throwing the ball for Smothers. But I will say this. I think Sam Pinckney had a great game last week. I don't think he quite has that game this week. I think they're going to really pay a lot of attention to him, put 2 guys over the top of him. Look for Jared Brown today. He has got to have a big game. They have got to deliberately get him the ball in space. Because if you get him the ball in space, one-on-one, nobody's catching that kid. Get him the ball early on, let him make things happen, and then at that point, you work everything off of that, and I think Coastal Carolina gets the win today.
And they got to score when they're in the red zone, right? We saw an interception thrown. They weren't quite in the red zone, but they were on like the 25, 30-yard line driving on UCLA last week, throws an interception. And then you had 2 missed field goals as well. If you have missed field goals or any kind of those type of turnovers in this game, that could give Jacksonville State huge momentum swing in their favor in this game.
The last thing I'll say, too, is Jacksonville State hasn't quite played a passing attack like Coastal's this year. So I think it's something that they haven't seen. They're not going to be quite ready for it. The last 2 teams have been predominantly run.
So you're picking Coastal?
I got Coastal.
I think, like Jeff just said, Jacksonville State hasn't seen an offense like this. I think Coastal Carolina's offense is going to score a lot of points. We all know that they can. They're favored by 13 points in this game, and I think they cover that.
I think Coastal big. I think. I mean, what they have 3 interceptions against UCLA last week.
I don't know if it was
One
3.
guy had 3.
Oh, you're talking about, yes. I thought you were
Yeah.
talking about Coastal's
Yeah.
offense.
So if they get any kind of turnovers in this game, I don't think they're going to get 3 interceptions because I don't think Jacksonville State's going to throw it that much. But if they get any kind of turnovers, I think this game could be over quickly. I look for a lot of, anytime they get a turnover, I look for that quick change of possession, deep ball, big play, throw it for the end zone. And I think we'll get some of those. I think then you're going to get the crowd involved. I think it's going to be hot and humid out there. And I think Coastal big. One thing that I have to say, though, before we sign off of this thing, state of South Carolina, city of Myrtle Beach, why do we have to have a state trooper on every block doing a speed trap? I mean, you can't drive more than 60 miles an hour in this town, which is why it took 27 minutes to get from Conway to the beach.
I mean, you go from 55 to 45 to 55 to 45.
It is unbelievable, this town. But no, man, we couldn't be happier to be here. Couldn't be more thankful for the Hangout for hosting us. I think we're about to pack up, maybe get down here. They got all kinds of frozen drinks, daiquiris, margaritas, all kind of good stuff.
College football kicks off.
Might.
About 10 minutes.
Yep.
So thank you guys for watching and listening. You can catch us Tuesday night on our live recap show. 8 o'clock Eastern time is when we typically get started on that. Go to YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify. We're live on there, and then you can watch any of our past episodes as well. Give us a 5-star rating and review. Subscribe to the channel. Follow us on all the social media platforms at Group of 5 Guys, or you can go to groupof5guys.com and get you some swag. We're excited to see Mr. Quigley down at the tailgate. And just a little heads up, we will see you in Troy next Saturday. We're out.